looking for fun.
Catch the action with over 50 rides, shows, and attractions at the world's largest participation park, where you and the rides become one. You're just minutes away.
Liminal Land is an ongoing ARG run by prominent horror YouTubers Nexpo and Nick Crowley. The story revolves around the events of Liminal Land, a now defunct amusement park where some unknown tragedies occurred in the 70s and 80s. It's now up to us, the viewer, to determine what really happened to both Liminal Land and everyone who visited it. As we delve deeper, we uncover stories of child sacrifice, Canaanite gods, and anomalous events. As of now, the ARG is comprised of 5 videos and a variety of posts over at visitliminalland.net. This is going to be a long one, so get comfortable as we investigate the extensive history of Liminal Land. An introduction to the series is presented to us in the form of a post titled About Liminal Land on the Liminal Land website. Here we can find a brief overview of the park's history from the day it opened to the day it closed. Alongside this is a plethora of eerie images depicting the once lively attractions which resided inside Liminal Land. Liminal Land opened its doors in the early winter of 1975. Destined to become one of the grandest amusement parks in the United States, Charon Corporation set out to push the boundaries of what it meant to provide immersive entertainment. To this day, it's unclear how exactly Liminal Land garnered such a passionate and sizable audience so quickly, as the town of Lake Valley, New Mexico has historically had a relatively small population. Regardless, ticket sales exploded from day one, much to the credit of large families who flew in from all over the world to experience Charon's experimental vision. From the beginning, Liminal Land was always embedded with one mission: to dethrone Disneyland as the go-to destination for thrill seekers of all ages. Coasters that evoked emotion, a multi-tiered water park, and a massive underground suburbia were among the experiences being tested while the park was open. And to this day, debates are plentiful on whether Charon actually achieved their goal of industry dominance. Surprisingly, very little news coverage came out of Lake Valley during Liminal Land's tenure. Parkgoers seemed avid to serve as test subjects for their experimental rides, and it felt like no one ever batted an eye. Regardless of the numerous accidents that took place over the years, there was never a single investigation, audit, or inspection ever credibly done. What Liminal Land touted as anomalous events were simply tarped off for a day and reopened thereafter with not a single word about them. For 14 years, the park operated in this bizarre manner. People went missing, rides consistently changed, and the park's staff were always apathetic about it. Yet Liminal Land's popularity paradoxically appeared to grow. Unfortunately, on May 20th of 1989, Liminal Land's day of reckoning had come. That night, the park was rapidly and indefinitely shut down, with no concrete reason ever being given. The remains of those present on that fateful night are rumored to remain exactly where they were last seen, although nobody knows for sure. There's been nothing like it for decades, and probably never will. Obviously, this is not your average amusement park. There's something more sinister at play if Liminal Land experienced numerous accidents, anomalous events, missing persons, and a lack of investigations into these reports. This off-putting element is prevalent in the photos presented in the post titled Attractions. For instance, attractions such as the Centrifuge, the Chrysanthemum, Unknown 1, Serpentine, Unknown 2, and the Laugh Track all look like they were pulled straight from a haunted house, given how ominous the photos are. The most important of these attractions, the Hall of Walls, Paradise Playrooms, and Subliminal Land include their own posts which describe each of them in detail. Same hall, new walls. The staple of Liminal Land is back for the summer season with a brand new look. The freshly painted gray walls blend together more than ever in what the Lake Valley Times calls the most immersive escape room man has ever built. Featuring its signature 800,000 square foot megastructure, the Hall of Walls offers an experience like no other where guests can lose themselves every time. Built into the outer walls of the structure now stand 7 unique exits, each of which demanding a different path to take. Of these exits, only one will be opened each day, while the rest are sealed off by gray walls no different than the countless others within the structure. This assures a unique experience for our explorer every time, as you never know what route will lead you to your escape. Unwilling to settle for the monotony of the tired current day escape rooms, Dr. Schlittenberg used his advanced knowledge of the human mind to push and eventually shatter the boundaries of what many believe possible for a theme park attraction, crafting an experience that can only be described as Liminal Land's crown jewel. Though we strive for all explorers to feel the sensation of vanishing, help is always around the corner. For help exiting the hall, make your way to the nearest partner. If a partner is out of reach, calmly stand still and wait. Help is always on the way. Paradise Playrooms. Unnamed child photographed playing in the early variation of the park's signature Paradise Playrooms. The vast building served as a maze for children to get lost in, as their parents enjoyed the more mature attractions in the park. Found in remaining company files, this poster once promoted the highly ambitious Paradise Playrooms, which served as the park's alternative to daycare. Early reviews suggested that the attraction lived up to its name, with children joyfully spending hours lost in a maze of never-ending fun. And finally, introducing Subliminal Land, a whole new world underneath your feet. 3 years after Liminal Land changed the face of Lake Valley, Charon Corporation has emerged with yet another project bound to fascinate park visitors. A multi-thousand square foot underground complex spanning 36 floors vertically downward is now available to explore, completely at your leisure. Immerse yourself in the naturally heated structures warmed by the remnants of Lake Valley's dormant test sites. Given the city's rich history and diligence in investing in energy infrastructure, Lake Valley Observations has donated their prior complex to benefit Charon's vision of bringing humanity the most unique theme park experience in the world today. You'll find that Subliminal Land carries the most unique pool architecture in the world. Irregular pool shapes break the monotony of the rectangular alternatives, largely made possible by the reuse of old, clean energy reservoirs left behind by the engineers and scientists from Lake Valley Observations. On top of this, you'll find that each pool is seamlessly connected to every other one on each floor, meaning you'll never have to leave the water. As you make your way out of the hospitality sector and into the Serenity Ward below it, you'll discover the crowds become less prevalent. This is by design, and is made possible by the sheer size of floor B10 and beyond. You'll be pleased to find that the deeper you venture into Subliminal Land, the larger the floors become, allowing you to truly escape the monotony of daily life in lieu of a dead silent, unforgettably serene experience underground. If you're having difficulty navigating the maze-like structure of Subliminal Land, feel free to ask the nearest partner and they'll be happy to direct you. 3 parkgoers taking a break from the expansive network of pools within Subliminal Land. They appear to be somewhere on floor B27, although nobody knows for sure. While there's much to be said about each of these attractions independently, what's most important to notice is that Charon is attempting to achieve a similar goal with all of them, and that is to make the visitors stay for as long as possible. Whether this means getting lost in the ever-changing Hall of Walls, in the maze and Paradise Playrooms, or on one of the many floors in Subliminal Land. All of the aforementioned attractions are designed to keep the visitor trapped and isolated, with their only form of escape being to find a Liminal Land's employee and ask for directions, if there's even an employee nearby. Now's a good time to discuss our first tape of the Liminal Land YouTube channel, titled Company Training Tape Visitor Satisfaction. As the description states, this tape was recovered from the main office at Liminal Land Park. It seems to be part of a collection. This is an orientation tape, presumably for new hires, that teaches them to recognize when a visitor is dissatisfied with Liminal Land.
Look at the photo. Look at the photo.
Though this tape is disturbing by all accounts, it may seem like it doesn't harbor any deeper information to help unravel the mystery of Liminal Land. But it actually does. And this information can be easily overlooked if you're not paying close enough attention. At exactly 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the tape, text appears on screen saying, "If you encounter a dissatisfied visitor, be sure to make their day by suggesting additional park activities." However, there's a single frame right before that where the text is altered to read, "We hope this tape has helped to prepare you to keep visitors here for as long as possible." This is followed by, "At Liminal Land, a happy visitor is a forever visitor." You've probably realized this by now, but these phrases are important because they tie back to the idea of keeping visitors trapped inside Liminal Land. If a happy visitor is a forever visitor, then of course, Charon would train their employees to spot dissatisfied visitors and find a way to satisfy them. At the end of the video, we're told to inform our manager to initiate the next course with the password "right" when we are ready, followed by the tape ending. Though we don't know why, it's clear that Charon is attempting to isolate and ensnare visitors within their attractions. It's because of this that Charon created Home, an underground suburbia built underneath Liminal Land to encourage visitors to stay for longer and make themselves at home. Welcome Home. One of the finer creations of Liminal Land Park came with the creation of their flagship accommodation, the Holistic and Opportune Mutual Experience, or Home. The Home project encompassed a sprawling underground suburbia, perfect for families who traveled from out of state to experience Liminal Land for themselves. Built from the repurposed bones of the Lake Valley Observatory employee housing structure, the site once housed the facility's clean energy workers and their families, at a time creating one of the largest underground communities in existence. Upon its opening, Liminal Land aimed to celebrate this sense of community by transitioning Home's purpose away from employees and geared towards park visitors, many of whom felt overwhelmingly comfortable while inside due to its illusory nature. This sensation of homeliness was the sole intention behind the project, as Charon sought to keep guests inside the park for as long as possible in hopes of maximizing profits. Because of this, Home would be the only in-park hotel offered to guests, reportedly containing around 10,000 concurrent operational rooms at its peak, spread out over a handful of square miles underneath Liminal Land. Blending 50s-inspired decor with modern cues from the 1980s, Home was a marvel for its time, and due to the intrigue and raving reviews surrounding it, Charon would begin selling units in 1981, fulfilling their goal of keeping their patrons on park grounds for as long as humanly possible. Quick family vacations often turned into extended and even permanent stays, and for many, Liminal Land Park had indefinitely become Home. A full-page advertisement celebrating a facility named Home. While little is known about what went on inside, rumor has it that it was Liminal Land's take on a reality-bending underground suburbia. Urban legend aside though, it was more than likely a clever accommodation to get families to stay at the park longer than they otherwise would. Poster recovered from the Home complex, depicting an oddly to-the-point demand to onlookers. Its dreamlike visuals reflected the maze-like structure of the lower levels of Liminal Land, as visitors would often wind up inside, with no recollection of how they got there. Like Liminal Land's aforementioned attractions, Home was also built to act as a maze, preventing visitors from ever finding a way out. However, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. What amusement park wouldn't want its customers to stay for as long as possible? Keep this idea in the back of your mind, because before we begin to get a feel for the true malicious nature of Liminal Land, we need to discuss one of the founding members, Dr. Frank Schlittenberg. If you remember, Dr. Schlittenberg was responsible for the creation of the Hall of Walls, and also a ride I haven't spoken about yet, named the Laugh Track. The first published mention of Dr. Frank Schlittenberg in the weekly edition of Science News on November 28, 1959, 16 years before the opening of Liminal Land. The article briefly discusses his research into the world of cortical activation and specifically compression-induced laughter. Despite discovering the clear health issues that prolonged exposure to these compressions can cause, he incorporated the same technology years later into the Laugh Track. The group concerned with providing a database for this summer's interdisciplinary study of amusement park engineering at the Rochester Institute of Technology faced several difficulties, says Dr. Frank Schlittenberg, Chief Engineering Chairman. An approach to measuring the effects of mechanically induced cortical activation was inducing chest compression via an overhanging chest mount resting on the shoulders of willing participants. On intervals of 60 seconds, the restraints would compress, causing uncontrollable laughter in the subjects. Though there are many ways to test mechanical cortical activation, this study specifically used means of compression for laughter and the effects it may have on individuals over extended periods of time. The risk of harmful pressure in the trunk cavity during expression was the sole focus in the research to distinguish whether this type of induced laughter could be viable and safe to emulate in commercial products. To research the harmful effects of mechanically induced laughter, 25 university students volunteered to have their chests compressed at random intervals. On average, the participants experienced brief moments of euphoria in the test's initial phases. In later phases, participants began to feel feelings of fear, anxiety, and panic. In the final phase of testing, every participant reported feeling intense stomach pain and severe mind fog. Ultrasounds later revealed damage to the diaphragm of 3 of the participants, including 1 total rupture. The results of this study support the hypothesis that mechanically induced cortical activation is possible and can be replicated to induce emotions. The results also support the hypothesis that prolonged exposure to mechanically induced cortical activation can result in negative effects on the human mind and body, and that these effects pose an increased risk of harm to the vital organs in the trunk cavity. Given this, the implementation of induced laughter in the commercial, uncontrolled products is not recommended until these effects are better understood. Circa 1977. 2 years after the opening of Liminal Land, the happiest ride on Earth. Charon Corporation's first foray into the experimental roller coasters. The Laugh Track utilized specialized restraint compressions to evoke uncontrolled laughter during its 8-minute runtime. The potential for asphyxiation was still being studied, although strangely, not a single rider had filed a complaint during its brief run. Circa 1988. 1 year before the closure of Liminal Land. Back on track. Cameras on the Laugh Track capture giggling passengers upon the esteemed ride's reopening in the summer of 1988. The ride had been suspended earlier that year and covered with massive tarps in an attempt to hide it from the public eye. The official reason given for its closure was severe mechanical issues. with the tarps being used to protect the ride from the harsh sunlight. Many have gone on to reject these explanations, with some going as far to claim that the ride was closed due to an accident and potentially even total derailment. Though to this point, little evidence exists to back these rumors. The ride continued to operate that summer, much to the enjoyment of parkgoers, and remained operational until Liminal Land's eventual closure the following year. It's currently not known if any riders ever experienced damage to their bodies or minds while riding the laugh track. Obviously, there's something malicious going on with Dr. Schlittenberg and the laugh track. Not only does Dr. Schlittenberg's research show that inducing laughter can cause harmful effects physically and mentally, but there was also a suspension of the laugh track in 1988 for some unknown reason, most likely some sort of accident as opposed to a mechanical malfunction. If I had to guess, the laugh track is a means to cheer up dissatisfied visitors in Liminal Land. Knowing what we know from the visitor satisfaction tape, employees are trained to spot dissatisfied visitors and suggest other park activities, the laugh track most likely being one of the activities. This way, you can mechanically induce happiness, causing the visitor to stay longer. Dr. Schlittenberg's involvement only scratches the surface of what's going on inside of Liminal Land, so it's no surprise that suspicions began to arise as more incidents occurred. On June 15, 1987, the Lake Valley Police arrived on scene of a house fire. Despite a quick response time, there was nothing that could be done to salvage the home. When arriving on scene, 2 adults engaged our team to alert them of the presence of 2 children stuck in their bedroom. The 2 were locked in for bedtime before the oven caught fire due to a forgotten cake left by the mother. The blaze, however, was too severe for the fire squad to enter. Both children would eventually perish in the flames. Fast action was made to stop the spread of the blaze, and thankfully nearby homes were spared of any serious damage. Cleanup was completed the following day, and 1 house was repainted due to damage from the smoke. No charges were filed. This home belonged to the Jacobsons, and unfortunately, the children in the family were unable to be saved that day. Over 6 months later, the mother of the family, Margaret Jacobson, would go missing. She had brown hair, brown eyes, a fair complexion, and was last seen at Liminal Land Park, 600 County Road, Lake Valley, New Mexico. In the same year as her disappearance, LVVT5 would air a missing persons segment during a sign-off, in which Margaret was included amongst a plethora of other missing persons. The description of this tape on the Liminal Land website reads the following. Contrary to the small population size of Lake Valley, the high number of missing persons cases is likely attributed to the numerous incidents that took place within nearby Liminal Land Park. We're not yet told what events have occurred at Liminal Land for so many people to be missing, but this is enough to finally attract the attention of Lake Valley Police, who begin to investigate Liminal Land's attractions. A memorandum from an unknown sender to an unknown recipient describes the current turmoil between Liminal Land and the local police department. I am writing this letter to inform you of the escalating activities in the Liminal Land Park, where outside jurisdiction is poking around behind the scenes. We've received your reports of street-clothed officers from the surveying the premises after park hours, allegedly conducting some sort of unlawful investigation into your park's activities. One officer was reprimanded last night on level B34 of Subliminal Land, hiding in the men's restroom. When approached, he claimed to have been lost, before refusing to speak any further. Currently, he's being held in our facility for further questioning. We will send updates on what he knows and who else is involved with this work. For now, all that's confirmed are his ties to the investigative department of the... Previously, I recall your complaints of calling your offices about the laugh track. It's possible that he was hiding out to get a closer look at the ride when the park was cleared. We already know that has an interest in that ride specifically, so my advice would be to take action in-house. Shredding files will only do so much if they are actively in the park disguised as patrons. Consider looking into Clause 18. We're here to help. Sincerely, Now, it's unsure what steps the police took in their investigation into the missing persons at Liminal Land, but we do know that a higher authority was involved, as our second tape is brought to us by the New Mexico State Police, titled Investigation Tape: The Liminal Land Anomaly. The tape starts by explaining that one certain ride, which has been dubbed the Liminal Land Anomaly, is behind numerous cases of facial deformity. The first victim, Rick Ackerman, was visiting Liminal Land with his wife and 3 children. For some reason, he snuck away from them so that he could go ride the Liminal Land Anomaly alone. This led to Rick's facial deformity and his subsequent demise. The next victim is Lena Sorensen, a first-grade teacher who visited Liminal Land with her students. After dropping her children off at Paradise Playrooms, she goes missing for several hours. Her body is eventually found in a patch of dirt behind the Liminal Land Anomaly. The final victim is Maria Ramos, who, as opposed to the prior victims, visited Liminal Land alone. The day she visited, the Liminal Land Anomaly was down for maintenance, but Maria Ramos made her way to the control panel and started the ride herself. At the end of the tape, we learn that investigation into the Liminal Land Anomaly is still ongoing. What the Liminal Land Anomaly is and how exactly it operates is unknown, as the description of the tape states that most information surrounding the Liminal Land Anomaly is still mostly ambiguous. But one thing is for certain, it seems to be luring parkgoers to it, so that it can brutally and utterly deform them before ending their lives. But as for Margaret Jacobson, whose children succumbed to the house fire in 1987, her case is not related to the Liminal Land Anomaly. The reasoning behind her disappearance and the demise of her 2 children is lurking deep within Liminal Land itself, deep within home. Ergo, the sound in C block. The second memorandum. April 21st, 1984. From Jason Franklin to David. David, I'm having trouble figuring out how to approach Dr. S about this, but this is getting seriously out of hand. We cannot keep guys on payroll for longer than a few weeks before they walk off. I'm not sure if it's a pay discrepancy or what, but this is seriously beginning to affect our bottom line. Home is a mess. It's become a colossal hole ever since Dr. S decided to sell units for permanent stays. All this man cares about is money, money, money. And the residents don't care. They sit in their rooms, living like their trash is everywhere, and it stinks. How am I supposed to hire any decent talent if their first day on the job is cleaning up the mess the last team abandoned? We either need to shut off sections of home, or figure out some way to get more people in here fast. I can't keep pulling these overnights alone. Not like this. It's messing with me bad. I haven't told anyone, but 2 nights ago I heard something down the hallway inside C block. I'm not sure if it was because I was up for 22 hours straight, again, but it sounded so f***ing real. It was akin to a child's scream. The disturbing, blood-curdling scream, followed by what I can only describe as I know it sounds ridiculous. Underground, but dear God, it hasn't left my mind since. We need more guys. I'm overworked, I'm tired, and if things don't change, I'm walking off just like the others. Because f*** this. Regards, Jason Franklin. In this letter, we get a few references to Dr. Schlittenberg, who, even after 9 years since its opening, is still actively involved in Liminal Land, and seems to have control over Home. It would be likely that Dr. Schlittenberg was involved with the creation of Home, considering all his prior projects revolved around keeping visitors in the park for as long as possible, and Home is no different. But besides that, Jason Franklin, a Charon employee, thinks he heard a child screaming, along with something else that's redacted, down in the C block of Home. I wasn't able to determine what words have been redacted, but a user in the dedicated Liminal Land Discord server named Liz's Raid was able to edit the memorandum so that it clearly reads, "A bear." However, what Jason heard was not a bear. In fact, it's much more sinister and demonic. The second to last tape revolves around the Home facility. More specifically, it's a tape addressed to Home associates giving them some information about the place. It's here that they openly admit that the purpose of Home is to keep guests for as long as possible. Moving on, it's stated that Home is a lot bigger than Liminal Land. As the tape switches to another scene, text quickly pops up reading, "Warning, do not attempt to explore or ascertain the true size of the Home facility. Even we are entirely unsure of its size and extent." Like the visitor satisfaction tape, we're then quickly tested to see if we can spot anything that may cause an inconvenience to the guests, which would then cause them to leave prematurely. Once again, text flashes up on screen for a few frames, reading, "Important. Routinely and securely remove any and all doors, windows, or thresholds that can potentially serve as an exit from the Home containment area." This just as well puts the nail in the coffin, calling Home a containment area and instructing employees to remove any exits. About halfway through the tape, it switches over to found footage of someone sneaking through the home facility, opening doors, and following strange sounds, leaving passageways unlocked, and letting their curiosity get the better of them. Eventually, they end up in C Block and find what Jason had described in his memorandum. To me, this doesn't sound like a bear, but rather a bull. Let's take a step back. There's one area of the website which I've been withholding until this point, and that is the section titled Intervention. When you try to click on it, you're prompted to enter a passcode. It was eventually discovered that the password was Rite of Passage, which was derived from the visitor satisfaction tape, which gave us the passcode right. The password no longer works, as it's been changed nowadays, but entering Rite of Passage used to unlock a single image. This is Moloch, a Canaanite deity often associated with child sacrifice, and in this image, he's depicted as a bull. This series actually contains multiple instances of child sacrifice, one of which I've already gone over. You may remember that Margaret Jacobson's children died in a house fire a few months before she went missing at Liminal Land. I believe that Margaret Jacobson intentionally sacrificed her children. For starters, the children were locked in their room, with no way of escaping, and Margaret Jacobson was the one who left the cake in the oven. If you're still not convinced, the final tape covers this very topic, with the child who is mentioned all the way back in the missing persons segment, Angie Munoz. The final tape is again brought to us by the New Mexico State Police, and it's titled Mommy's Friend. The tape starts by informing us that Sophia Munoz, mother of Angie, has become erratic since the disappearance of her daughter. According to Sophia, Angie ran away from home at the dead of night, despite Sophia thinking she was in bed asleep. During the most recent search of the household, the NMSP discovered a series of drawings by Angie. This is my mommy. Mommy takes me everywhere. Mommy took me to Liminal Land. I was so excited. But then Mommy made me sad. Mommy took me in this house. Inside, there were more houses. Mommy looked. Mommy said she was looking for a friend. Follow me. It's okay. Inside was Mommy's friend. Mommy's friend. To sum it up, for whatever reason, Sophia brought Angie into the home facility, where they made their way to the C block, opened the door shown in found footage, and stumbled upon Moloch. Here we can assume that Sophia sacrificed Angie. Shortly after the discovery of these pictures, Sophia fled the house and has been missing since. If you happen to call the number listed with the video, you're greeted with this voicemail.
This number has been seized by the New Mexico State Police. The search for those impacted by nefarious activity taking place within Liminal Land Park are urged to submit any applicable information.
Why are you sitting there, listening to them? 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 Why are you sitting there?
For the life of me, I can't make out what the voicemail is saying, but to me it sounds like, why are you still here, listening to them? If you have a guess as to what the voice is saying, or who is saying it, please let me know. However, this all begs one question in particular. Why is the deity of child sacrifice locked up beneath an amusement park? At the time of uploading, the ARG is not yet progressed enough to give us a certain answer. Like the Liminal Land anomaly, Moloch seems to be attracting people toward him, people who realistically have no motivation to sacrifice their children. Before I end my analysis, it's imperative that we discuss the corporation behind Liminal Land, Charon. The site of Liminal Land was once home to Lake Valley Observations, an energy plant that produced, quote, clean energy. At its peak, Lake Valley Observations was home to an estimated 7,000 employees. Much of the underground portions of Lake Valley Observations was remodeled into subliminal land, including the main energy sector, which was turned into the final level. Note that, in the past, entering this room usually meant imminent death due to the constant reactions happening inside. In the early 70s, Charon came along and inspected the land, before purchasing and opening Liminal Land in 75. While we don't know much about Charon itself, the name of the corporation is significant. In Greek mythology, Charon was the name of the ferryman who carried souls from the world of the living to the world of the dead. Perhaps Charon Corporation is trying to act as a bridge between our world and hell with the help of Moloch. If so, perhaps the reason Charon wants to keep so many visitors at the park for an extended amount of time is to have more sacrifices to Moloch. But it's too early in the ARG to make any definite assumptions. But this begs the question, was Moloch there before Liminal Land? This is something we also don't know. If he was Lake Valley Observations aware that they were sitting on top of a deity? Perhaps Moloch was the source of their suspiciously worded clean energy. Again, we just don't know. As a final anecdote in this section, it's worth noting that Charon's reach currently extends outside of Liminal Land. In the Lake Valley Police Report from 1987 covering the Jacobson House fire, the Charon logo can be spotted on the Lake Valley Police badge. Credit to this user from the Liminal Land Discord server for the edited photo. Though Charon may control the Lake Valley Police, it doesn't seem as if they have control over the New Mexico State Police, as the state police are the ones doing the majority of investigations into Liminal Land. As a final side theory that I can't currently tie in with Moloch or the Liminal Land anomaly, the park itself seems to be alive. For a brief moment in the visitor satisfaction tape, the screen reads, "The park is AL," which we can assume to be trying to say, the park is alive. This ties in with the description for one ride, Serpentine, which has a description that reads as follows. Utilizing old metal tubing, Charon created a coaster that, in hindsight, broke every regulation in the book. Oddly, writers noticed bizarre rail movement when passing the curve, with some claiming that it appeared alive and snake-like. Over the years, Serpentine became something of an urban legend because of this, although this snake-like movement was likely because of its critical lack of support structure. As of now, I don't know what this means for the story, but it seems fairly clear that, in some aspects, the park is alive. From anomalous rides to child sacrifice, Liminal Land has been one of my favorite series to date, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I encourage all of you to research the series and join the Discord, since that's where all the information on this series is documented. I did almost all of this video off my own research, but if not for the Discord server, I wouldn't have known what the redacted documents were saying, nor would I have known that Charon was connected to the Lake Valley Police Department. So thank you to all the investigators over there. As for me, I'll be keeping up with the story of Liminal Land, and maybe someday even make another video on it. Until then, thank you for watching, happy investigating, and good night.